I never believed in the supernatural. At least, not until the fall of 2013. That's when everything changed. My name is Kyle Thompson, and what I'm about to share with you are a few terrifying true stories that have haunted my family and closest friends. Each one more bone-chilling than the last. It began with my cousin, Emily Bradford. She moved into a 2-story colonial-style house in rural Kentucky with her husband, Tyler, and their newborn son, Mason. The house had stood empty for over 2 decades, but Emily was obsessed with restoring old properties. From the moment they moved in, she said she felt watched. Doors would open on their own, and she would hear footsteps upstairs even when she was alone. Mason's baby monitor picked up strange whispering sounds, low, gravelly murmurs in a language no one could recognize. One night, Emily woke up to the sound of Mason screaming. She ran to the nursery and found his crib empty. Panic set in until she heard soft cooing sounds coming from the attic. She grabbed a flashlight and climbed the pull-down ladder. When she reached the attic, the light flickered violently. Mason was sitting in the middle of the floor, smiling up at her. There were handprints all around him, small blackened prints like soot, but no one else was up there. That same night they packed their bags and never returned. The house remains vacant to this day. Not long after, my best friend, Jason Miller, had an experience of his own. He worked late shifts at a gas station off I-40 in Tennessee. One night, while restocking the fridge, he saw a woman in a tattered white dress standing by the pumps. She didn't move. She didn't blink. Her face was obscured by long black hair, and Jason assumed she was just high or lost. He went outside to check on her, but she vanished before he could speak. Security footage showed something else entirely. The recording showed Jason walking outside, looking around confused. But the woman was never captured on camera. Instead, a shadow, elongated and shuddering, was shown hovering behind him for nearly 5 full minutes. Then it vanished in a blink. Jason quit the job a week later, and to this day, refuses to drive at night. Then there's the story of Mrs. Donna Reynolds, my grandmother's next-door neighbor in Georgia. She was 87, a sweet woman who always baked cookies for the neighborhood kids. One afternoon, she told my grandma that she had been seeing her late husband, Thomas, standing in the hallway at night. She described him exactly as he was before he died: gray cardigan, pressed slacks, and his favorite red tie. The strange thing was, Thomas had passed away in 1989, and Donna never showed signs of confusion or dementia. One evening, Donna was found sitting on the porch swing, eyes wide open, completely unresponsive. A neighbor called 911. The paramedics said she was alive, but unresponsive. She remained in that state for 4 days before dying suddenly in her sleep. When cleaning out her home, my grandmother found hundreds of sketches Donna had made in her final months. They were of Thomas, but with hollow eyes and twisted limbs, always standing in the hallway. Sometimes the sketches showed Thomas hovering over her bed. One even showed him crawling across the ceiling. No one knew she could even draw. Perhaps the most terrifying story came from my coworker, Shannon Price, who once worked as a park ranger in Arizona. She told me about a call she received one night. A family camping deep in the woods had reported seeing something watching them. Shannon hiked out with another ranger named Ben to investigate. When they arrived, the family was gone. All that remained was a torn tent, blood on the trees, and a series of barefoot prints leading into the woods, each print oddly misshapen, with claws instead of toes. They followed the trail for a half-mile before Ben radioed in a status update. Static. Then a scream. Shannon found him minutes later. Ben was crouched by a tree, mumbling incoherently, his eyes darting around wildly. He wouldn't speak a full sentence again for 6 months. When he finally did, all he said was, "It wore their faces." Shannon quit the Forest Service and moved to the city. She still refuses to talk about that night. And then there's my own story. I grew up in Michigan, in a small town called Westfield. My parents owned a little farmhouse passed down from my great-grandfather. I lived in that house from age 8 until I left for college. I always felt uneasy there, especially in the basement. My dog Cooper would never go down there. Whenever I tried, he'd bark and whimper at the top of the stairs. I never saw anything. Until the night I turned 17. It was my birthday. My parents had gone out for dinner, and I stayed home to play video games. The power flickered around 10 p.m., then went out completely. I grabbed a flashlight and went to check the fuse box, in the basement. As I descended the stairs, I heard breathing. Not mine. Not Cooper's. Deep, slow breathing coming from the far end of the basement. I shone the light around but saw nothing. Then I spotted it. 2 faint, pale hands curled around the edge of an old wardrobe we kept in the corner. Froze. The wardrobe door creaked open slowly. I screamed and ran back upstairs, slamming the door shut and pushing the couch in front of it. When my parents got home, I told them what happened. They laughed it off, saying I was just jumpy. But that same week, my mom began having night terrors. She'd wake up screaming about something in the walls. My dad started hearing voices calling his name from the basement. After a year of torment, we moved. We never spoke of it again. My cousin Sarah had an even darker encounter during her college years. She and 3 friends decided to explore an abandoned psychiatric hospital in Connecticut during winter break. They brought cameras and planned to post everything online. What they found, however, was beyond explanation. The hospital was ice cold despite it being only mildly chilly outside. The walls were scratched, with strange symbols carved into the plaster. As they explored the lower level, Sarah's friend, Mike, disappeared. They found him an hour later, curled up in a storage room, whispering over and over again, "I saw her eyes, she wants us to stay." They left immediately, but Mike never recovered mentally. He was later diagnosed with schizophrenia, but Sarah always believed it was something else, especially after she started receiving voicemail messages from Mike's number. Long, static-filled recordings with someone faintly whispering her name. Then there was the case of Trent Lawson, a firefighter from Idaho. He responded to a house fire in the outskirts of town. A woman had called saying her husband was trapped inside. When they arrived, the house was engulfed in flames. Trent rushed in and swore he saw a man standing calmly in the living room, unharmed by the fire, just staring at him. But when he got closer, the man disappeared. Later, they found the woman outside in shock. She lived alone. Her husband had died 2 years earlier. She claimed she hadn't made the call. The phone logs later confirmed it. The 911 call came from her landline. But her phone had melted in the fire before the call was made. Over the years, I've come to accept that some things simply don't have explanations. Whether it's ghosts, malevolent spirits, or echoes from something darker, these stories are more than fiction, they're warnings. Each person I mentioned experienced real, measurable consequences. Trauma, mental illness. What binds these stories?